Very good. So comfortable in your chair. Feet down below your knees and just rubbing your hands together. And then tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down one shoulder, your arm. The side. Part of the chest. Belly. And finally, your legs. Right. Settle back. As you become more experienced in these practices, you should be able to find that you're able to sort of approach your practice in a way that is appropriate for you right now. There's always more to learn in these arts, and this is just, you know, even after nearly 40 years of practicing these things, I still feel like a beginner most days. So we don't always want to be thinking, right, what have I got to learn now? It's good to learn new things sometimes, but it's also good just to be able to practice what you know, in a sense, so that the things that you are doing can actually just flow quite nicely. So, you know, it's for you to decide, but try just thinking, right, I'm just going to, in a sense, enjoy this. I'm going to go with sort of what I know. I'm going to explore the things that I know. I'm going to experience the things that I know without a kind of judgment. And you may notice, oh, you know, I'm still putting my foot wrong, or I'm still doing that wrong, or something like that. And you just, you know, you might want to just shelve that. Don't think that every single time you've got to be kind of perfect, because then you're only seeing one side of the practice. It's all this, got to learn that, got to learn that, got to learn that. Sometimes it's just like, I know this and I can do it, and I'm going to do what I can do, in a sense, to the best of my ability, and get the most out of it that I can at this particular time. You would, as I say, you don't want to do that all the time. You want times when you think, actually, I want to know more about that, or something like that. But this time of year, when things get so hectic, but when really, you know, the environment around us is, in a sense, quieting down. Midwinter time is not a time of huge activity. Then it's a good time for that, settling down ourselves. So just feel how it is to sit back in your chair. Think about those familiar feelings of allowing gravity through your body, feeling the weight of your body settle, feeling your body mold to the chair. Whatever the images, the feelings, the labels are, as I said a couple of weeks ago, those memories themselves become internalized images that we can begin to work with. And just see how that feels, that quietening, settling. Notice what you become aware of. Is it your breathing? Is it the quietening? Is there a sense that some parts of your body aren't part of that process? You may even just notice that actually it's quite difficult to do this in some ways, because there are constant things that seem to pull us out of this state. Our own thoughts, and, you know, the things that we're planning to do, and so on and so forth. And then it's just this simple return. From a meditative point of view, I really like the image that I was offered by one teacher who likened sitting meditation practice to being like sitting beside a river. When we sit beside a river, we're not trying to control the river, we're not trying to block it, we're not trying to get away from it, we're just sitting beside it and we're maybe watching the river go by. And in the same way, we want to, in a sense, be able to sit and allow our thoughts to pass through, allow those distractions or the noises from outside or whatever they are to go to pass through. And he went on to say that what happens is, on a fairly regular basis, we fall into the river. We fall into the river once again, a thought captures us or something like that. But then all we want to do in this image is to simply come back to the riverbank. It's a very simple process. One way of looking at everything that we do in these sessions, in these arts as a whole, is that there are ways of establishing a riverbank, a place that we can come back to. And there's that, in my experience, there's a pleasure, a contentment in experiencing that, oh, I can come back. So from that point of view, as another different teacher once said to me, the more times you get distracted, the more times you have to experience that coming back. So nothing need really to interrupt that sense of what I describe as the enjoyment of the process, the enjoyment of the session. And then just bringing your feet in. So that image of the riverbank came to me from a teacher called Nagpa Chogyam, a Tibetan trained teacher. I thought it was very appropriate to Tai Chi. So you wait just a little bit forward, supported by your feet, supported by your hips, buttocks, and the chair. The front of your body supported by your back. So as you sit, there's this lovely openness that develops. I've heard it described as regal because you feel as though maybe you're sitting, or when you're standing, a little taller, but without having to strain for it. It's just a natural response of your body to not having to carry your weight. Losing that tightness and that stiffness. And then just slowly turning your head. The shoulders. Going forwards. Hands down by your sides. And then raise your hands a little bit, see if you can wind all the way around. Not just your hands, but whole of your arm. So the rotation Still in your shoulder joint as much as possible. Go back in the other direction. Rest. Easing forwards. Feeling the transfer of your weight from hips to feet and back to your hips. Turning slightly. Feeling how your leg responds. Remember, you want that sense of softening in your leg until you feel that the leg is so full that the springiness there naturally pushes you back. And then in the other direction. And going around. You may find that, for instance, one side of your body, one leg or something like that, is perhaps better at yielding than the other. This is not at all uncommon. Sometimes that could just be a temporary thing. Sometimes it's a longer term thing, posture, maybe habits that we have in the way that we're moving. Most of us will favor one side or another for all sorts of reasons. Going back the other way. Sometimes even a movement like this, where maybe it felt good. Oh yeah, that's nice. You go back this way and you can't quite work it out. And it's like, oh, what's different? And then coming back to the center, raising one foot, stepping out, trying to get the full foot on to the ground, not just your heel, your toes, and with enough sort of left in the leg to be able to push gently into the floor. So not too long. On the other side. Okay. Hands drop down. Weight back in your hips. Turning your hands forward. Bird folded. Trying to keep a nice smooth action, particularly in that transfer of your weight. This time, fisherman cast the net. Try not to speed up. I think speeding up is one of the things that happens when we sort of started to slide into the river. Momentum picks up, our thoughts start to speed up, and our bodies follow suit. This time, coming over, you're rolling the ball in towards your chest. Sitting into the hips as you allow your arms to lower, and then you go forward. So you're moving through water. And then sitting back, drawing your arms apart, pigeon spreads its wings. One more time. Coming forwards, making the change to pushing away. So the elbows coming out slightly. A stronger image of pushing against water, pushing a boat, that kind of activity, where the resistance itself is quite fluid. Do one more after this one. When you reach the end of the movement, just flatten out your arms, roll your hands into a hollow fist, punch with both fists. Now going back to to pigeon spreads its wings. And then pushing away. Punch with both fists. Back to the pigeon spreading its wings. Pushing away. Punch with both fists. Do this for one more round. And then moving on now, open your fingers, turn them out, winding back. Last time. Bringing your hands back in, changing to polishing the table. Careful with your back on this one. I did it quite big as always, so people can see what I'm doing. But think about that feeling of space within your body. Make sure that with any of the movements, you're not sort of squeezing on that space. Much more. Okay, and then turn your hands palm up. Push down gently through your feet and your hips. Feel your upper body expanding, contracting, expanding, and contracting. Now change to wild goose. Still a little bit of downward pressure from your feet and your hips. This time, part in the clouds. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Gently reaching up. Remember, hips and shoulders have a downward movement. So even as you extend upwards, you've still got that connection to your root. Body remaining upright, trying not to achieve height by sort of straining. Once again, just moving within the space that's there. So even if that means that you're not moving very much, better to do that, you know, and understand the movement than it is to sort of overlook things. Do one more. And I'm going to change to the pushing in 2 directions, so it's both hands. Lifting again, but this time going a little bit above your head. And then pressing out to the side. Again, a nice, steady, regular rhythm. You may find the breathing just pulls in with. You could really breathe either way, but what I generally do is I breathe in on the expanding stage and breathe out and come down. Now this time I'll add the turn. Remember, the turn is in the center of your body between hips and waist. Have a sense of pulling your shoulders and your arms around. Those are your 4 directions. Again, using application. The idea of moving through water or something like that to give that a little bit of idea that you're moving against a soft resistance. See if that makes a difference. Do one more round of this. So now 1 foot forwards, resting on the heel, knees slightly bent still. Scooping the sea and looking at the sky. And then grasping the tiger's ass. Again, a loose fist. One more time. Switch over, scooping the sea and looking at the sky. And grasping the tiger's ears. Good. Just sit back for a moment. A couple of slow, gentle breaths. And then just moving your weight forwards and backwards a little bit. This time, excuse me, this time with a little bit of a turn. So you go to one leg and then back, and then to the other leg, and then back. Holding your hands ready, but still just in front of your belly. Feel the movement there in your arms and your hands, and when all you're doing is holding them in position. That's the movement, the energy that we're going to build on to create full movement, which is going to be hitting the ball in front of the shoulder. So you go forwards. And then yielding back. On the other side. One more on each side. And Carol gazes at the moon, slightly broader movement. Just be careful as your arms swing up. Stay very soft in your shoulders and your back. One more on each side. Turn your hand in to hold a ball. Change direction. One more. Then we're going to change to a horizontal circle, but we're going to alternate. Stirring the beans, you swing around, one hand extends out, and then you swing back the other way, and as you do, that hand withdraws, and the opposite one swings out. A little bit of forward and backward movement in your weight, but mostly just work from the center of your body. And if your weight happens to respond, that's fine. But don't worry if it doesn't. Something will be happening in the legs. One more time. And then come back to resting. Taking note of the feel, the flavor of this posture, especially in the upper part of your body, because really when we sit in the chair. When we stand, we sit into our hips and legs. So you know, there's a crossover there between seated and standing. And once again, rubbing your hands together. And tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. And one shoulder. Arm. The other side. Belly. And legs. And then one foot just pushing up and down, pumping the leg. And then going around in a circle. And the other leg. and circling. And then standing. So once again, we're not necessarily trying to make kind of huge leap forwards all the time. So just find a comfortable position to stand in. In a sense, allow your body to find that position. An exercise that we've done quite a lot, of course, is just to rock your weight forwards and backwards. And you may find this useful just because as you do that, you'll pass through that point of equilibrium, of neutrality. But we can also turn this into a circular movement by sort of taking our weight around the edge of the feet. So you go towards the edge of one foot, you go back into the heel, you go across, and then up the other edge to the toes, the ball of the foot and across. And just gently swaying around, not too far, because obviously if you go too far, that will happen. Soften your knees and your hips. Go back the other way. And this time, just allow it to spiral inwards like water running down a plug hole. So that essentially what you're doing is just allowing your body to find its position. Now, that's not that easy to do, but and it's not as though you're ignoring everything that you've done before. It should be a very natural thing, but this is where all those little details that we've picked up over the time we've been doing this, ideas and images and so on and so forth, are there, but we kind of move a little bit beyond them sometimes, and they just work for us, and we sort of come to rest. You might want to tweak the posture a little bit once you come to rest, bringing your weight forward, letting your hips drop back, and so on and so forth. Or you might just be content to stay where you are. Again, it's how it feels to you at the moment. Sinking down and pushing up. And then changing. And then changing. One more time. And shake it. Yeah. Put one foot in front. And do this little exercise with the up and down movement. Just rest on your front leg and push up and down a couple of times. What we're looking for is that feeling of just dropping that we get when we sit in the chair. So the interesting thing is that when we do this in the chair, when we sort of release tightness and that, we can feel a sense of dropping. But of course, the chair is there, so we're not actually physically going up and down that much. Here we are to begin with, but it's really to remind ourselves of that internalized feeling. So try that on both legs very carefully. And then turn it into the forward and back movement, going up as though you're going over a little bump and down. So we're going from the side, up and down. Just to remind us really that one of the essential parts of this exercise is the settling into the leg. But we want to just gradually even it off, but still retain that moment of settling. And then raising your toes and your heel. And stepping. And then on the other side. Raising your toes and your heel. And stepping in. Stepping through. And going back. And check. Right foot forwards. Fisherman cast in there. And again, just give yourself a chance to sort of enjoy that fluidity of the movement. There's lovely wave-like quality working through the body, from the legs, through your back, into your arms. Remember to settle into the leg each time you transfer your weight. Good, and then on the other side. Lovely. And go back to your chair. And just notice that feeling of sinking into the chair, and realize that actually a lot of that is to do with what you're experiencing within your body. So as we settle here, you can begin to be aware of that feeling of sinking through the chair. Of course, unless the chair's collapsing, which hopefully it's not. Your hips are staying the same height, your knees are not bending any further, and so on and so forth. So we don't necessarily equate how much the knees are bent, how much the hips sink, with how much we're rooting down. We will always need to soften the knees for the hips to sink, and so on and so forth. And sometimes we'll be going deeper and that. But the two aren't sort of the same thing. That we use the hips going back and down. We use the knees softening and bending a little bit to help us to experience the sensation of rooting down through our body. And we don't want that to be a struggle. I mean, sometimes we're training and the legs are hurting, and we do that. That's all part and parcel of the training. But again, it's more about allowing this to happen, and realize that the rooting is really this same process as yielding, sort of giving way to the pull of gravity, or allowing gravity to work through us. It's not really giving way, because we're coming into a posture. If you gave way, you'd just fall over. So hands at your side, and just do a couple of rounds of the wild goose. And notice that as your arms come up in this way, it gets harder work. So you meet more and more resistance until at a certain point, around about here, to go any further, you would create a tightening. It would become a struggle. It's around about shoulder height usually. And what we really want to do is to avoid that struggle. So this time, just before you reach that point, bring your arms around and then feel your hips sinking down, your shoulders dropping, your hands coming in. And just feel how fitting in with that movement of the pull of gravity and that movement upwards through the body puts us into a natural cycle of movement, not quite automatic, but one that's there waiting for us, that can bring us back to our roots. So even when we're coming out of our roots, the potential is there to come back if we can just follow the movement. And of course, it's not that simple. We need, the work that we've done on getting posture right and building the awareness and so on and so forth, all important here. But once again, it's more a question of we're not working on details, but rather, in a sense, feeling the effect of those details, which is to bring us back to the mountain. Just make the movement smaller so the hands don't go as high or as far out. Smaller again. And again, until eventually hardly any movement there, but still aware of being able to yield through your whole body to the pull of gravity. Notice the effect of drawing you into the mountain is still very much there, even without the big movements. Just letting yourself come to rest. And open your eyes. Thank you as always, everybody. Hope that was useful, and we continue this week as normal and up until Tuesday next week. So there will